Hello there guys and welcome to Saturday's live stream here at Imola. I am JWF1 and we are here to kick things off with a qualifying session to determine the grid for tomorrow's San Marino Grand Prix. And if you didn't see what happened last weekend at Budapest, it obviously ended in a red flag, but it didn't really change the positions after cutting back 2 laps. In the end, Lewis Hamilton won the race with Fernando Alonso clinching second place in the end, with Esteban Ocon getting on the podium for Martini. So now Verstappen and Ocon one apiece in terms of podiums, and hopefully we're in for an exciting weekend here at Imola. This weekend though, we have just a note for you, of course. This weekend, Etihad Racing could clinch the Constructors' Championship this season. All they need is a 1-2 finish and they will win it. Going into this race, EMR have 77 points, Etihad have 164, so that's, I think, 93 points between them if I'm correct, or something under those lines. They just need a 1-2 finish and they will win their 3rd successive Constructors' crown. So all to play for really. But as you can see for the qualifying session, look at that. It looks to be raining for this session. So hopefully we're expecting maybe a mixed grid considering it is raining. A couple of other notes as well. 2 of the 11 teams have brought upgrades here for this weekend. And on top of that as well, Pascal Wehrlein is not here for this weekend. He was meant to serve a qualifying ban, but AMP decided to sit him out to avoid it for causing those 2 incidents that he caused. One with Sergio Perez and the other, which I initially thought was Charles Leclerc, but it was in fact Carlos Sainz Jr. that he caused the crash with, so I do apologise for that. It was Carlos Sainz Jr. that he had the incident with. But AMP have decided to sit him out to cool him down from that race. And for this weekend, they have replaced him with Mick Schumacher. Mick Schumacher making his top-class return since last season for a one-off appearance here at AMP to partner alongside Stoffel Vandoorne. So, be very interested to see how Mick does this weekend here at Imola, where he didn't have a particularly good weekend here last season. So, anyway, as you see, we've got a cloudy sky and it looks to be raining, so we expect a wet track. So, I think without further ado, let's get to the 35-minute qualifying session. So, here we are then in the pit lane. As you can see, it's still dry out there at the moment, but don't be alarmed if it starts to wetten up. We will take advantage of this at the moment. We're at the end of the pit lane then with Felipe Massa, so we will wait and get this session underway. It's a 35-minute session as per usual, as we wait for the first set of cars to get out onto the track and get this show on the road, essentially. So, let's wait and see what goes off then during this session, of course, here at Imola. And as you can see, Massa we're at the end of the pit lane with, and we've got a car coming out on the track. It looks to be a Suomi that's coming out. It looks like Kevin Magnussen, I believe, and it is Kevin Magnussen, judging from the red helmet. So Kevin Magnussen out on track now then for Suomi as he heads around the first few turns where Kimi Raikkonen had his accident with Sebastian Vettel last season, of course. That was when San Marino was towards the beginning of the season. Now it's towards the back end of the season for round 14 of the championship, the first of 2 visits to Italy. This weekend we're at Imola, next weekend at Monza, so it should be very exciting times for IFMC. So if I sound a little bit funny, I do have a bit of a cold because of the hay fever. I am a hay fever sufferer, I'm afraid, so you might have to put up with a very funny voice, I'm afraid. I was suffering for it a little bit yesterday as well when I was commentating, so it seems to have passed on today as well. So I do apologise if you hear any sniffles or weird voice. But anyway, Kevin Magnussen now then coming up towards the chicane. And as you can see, it's starting to rain down this part of the track, look. So it's raining at this section of the track as we see Antonio Giovinazzi out there, Sergio Perez, Fernando Alonso, hoping he doesn't get held up by Sergio Perez, Felipe Massa, Valtteri Bottas, Max Verstappen, Stoffel Vandoorne, Carlos Sainz Jr., Nico Hulkenberg, Daniel Ricciardo, Mick Schumacher back in the car. Good to see him back in IFMC. Brennan Hartley, Charles Leclerc. And that is that. They are the 14 cars out on track this instant. There are some parts of the track that are raining, but some parts have not got the rain at the moment. Sorry if you can hear my dog in the background as we now come up towards the first few corners. As you can see, Magnussen through towards turns 1, 2 and 3. And he will now head down towards the Villeneuve chicane through the left and right-hander. And through the right-hander we go, using all the curb on the outside. As we now go around the left-handed hairpin. And now up the hill goes Magnussen as he will soon approach the Piratella. And it's obviously a tap on the brakes through into this corner. No rain at this part of the track as of yet, as Magnussen brings the car around that left-hander down towards the 2 Aquaminerali corners, as he will soon go up the hill towards that chicane. Using the curve on the outside now up towards the chicane, where it is starting to rain down there as well. And I feel sorry for the 8 people that haven't gone out of this instance because of GP3 system. So now going down towards the 2 Ravazza corners now then. And it's trying to wetten up, but it's still currently dry on the track. Through towards Ravazza 1, then we go. And then into Ravazza 2. Coming off the turn, using all the curb on the outside. It's now Magnusson will approach the final 2 turns. And let's see what he can do then. Round the left, then the right, and then down towards the pit straight we go. And Magnusson will now cross the line, and he has a 1 minute 21.714. What about Antonio Giovinazzi? As he comes down the pit straight himself, Giovinazzi will cross the line, and he goes second fastest with that lap. Sergio Perez goes fastest for the moment. Alonso P4 only with that lap. P4 for Felipe Massa. Looked like Alonso get held up a bit by Sergio Perez. Here's Perez's teammate Valtteri Bottas, who rounds the final 2 turns, heading down the pit straight, and across the line will go the Finn. And Bottas, where's he going to languish? In 4th place with that lap. Max Verstappen crosses the line, goes fastest for the moment. Here comes Stoffel Vandoorne entering out the final turn, and Vandoorne will now cross the line, and he will go 3rd fastest. Carlos Sainz Jr. in the shadow will head in towards the final few turns himself, and heading down the pit straight. Sainz will cross the line to go 9th fastest. Nico Hülkenberg in the EMR, what can he do? Coming off the final turn onto the pit straight. Hülkenberg now then across the line, and he goes 5th fastest with that lap, as it's P9 only for Daniel Ricciardo. Mick Schumacher 12th fastest, 13th for Brendan Hartley, as it's 13th for Charles Leclerc. And I think that's going to do it in terms of those guys at the moment. Is there a particular part of the track where it started to wetten up? Well, it's raining pretty much nearly all the track now. Still in this section here, look, it's still no rain, but you wouldn't be surprised at this stage if that's going to continue down. So at the moment, it is currently Max Verstappen fastest at the moment in this session, ahead of, I'll have to look at what the top 5 looks like. Magnussen up in 4th place at the moment, taking advantage of the conditions. It is Verstappen for Perez, Vandoorne, Magnussen and Hülkenberg. So that's how the leaderboard currently looks at this stage. As Leclerc goes through Piratella now then, before heading down towards the Aquaminerali. As he goes down through the section of corners now then. Up the hill then towards the chicane. And into the chicane now then will go Charles Leclerc, as he flicks the car around those section of curbs. And it looks like maybe that the conditions could get a little bit worse. And we'll have to wait and see really if this is going to affect other people's lap times at this stage. As going through Ravazza 1 and 2 will go Charles Leclerc, as he'll be heading back into the pits this lap. Grosjean now then out on track for Bud Light Line, and he just comes out of the track now then as he heads down towards the first few turns on the track. Around the first few turns, and it'll be very interesting to see if any of the tarmac has started to wetten up a bit. It's still dry out there at this stage, but you wouldn't be surprised if conditions are starting to get a little bit slippy out there. Might be starting to dampen up a little bit. Still no rain up in towards this left-handed hairpin yet, but don't be surprised if it's going to spread soon. I mean, it's starting to rain a little bit up over here now, as you can see, but now in towards Piratella. We will now go on the track as Grosjean flicks the car around the left-hander, heading down the hill towards the 2 Ravazza corners, in towards Ravazza 1, and then into Ravazza 2. It's caught a lot of people out in the past, Ravazza has, especially Season 2, where there seemed to be a lot of oil from the GP2 race that caused a lot of people to spin. It's starting to dampen up a bit into that chicane. I don't know if there Grosjean started to lift off a little bit through into that section. As now Grosjean will head down towards Ravazza 1 and 2. And you can see there is spray now coming down towards Ravazza. So it is starting to wetten up a little bit, but still not quite time yet for the intermediates at this stage. I don't think the guys are on inters at this stage. I could be wrong, but I don't think it looks like they're on inters. I think they're still on the dry tyres. As they come out the final turn, Grosjean about to start his first flying lap. He'll be hoping there's no traffic in front as his teammate goes through, and there's Alonso look on the left-hand side. I believe that's Alonso in the Etihad. As Grosjean heads down towards the first 3 turns through Tamburello, and through towards he will go, and then into the Villeneuve chicane we will go. And let's see how he does round here through the Villeneuve chicane, heading down towards the hairpin, and he will soon go up the hill towards Piratella. Grosjean flinging the car around that section of corner, as he heads up the hill now then towards Piratella. And now into Piratella we go. Luckily for him, Giovinazzi in front is not holding him up at this stage as he heads down towards Ravazza 1 and 2. And as we mentioned a little earlier, it might be starting to get a little bit slippy out there on the track as we now enter towards the chicane. And still not wetted up at that part. Looked like Grosjean took that a little bit cautiously than what he would do in the dry. As you can see, it is starting to wetten up now as they head down towards Ravazza, so this could cost some time at all for people who hasn't started a lap yet. Into Ravazza 1 and then down to Ravazza 2 we go. Out of the turn goes Grosjean as he will now approach the final chicane now then, and let's see what Grosjean can manage then this time by into the final corner. And now onto the pit straight, and Grosjean loses a lot of time. Look at the lap time, look, and it's only 15th fastest as a result. Alonso starts his lap. Ed Jones rounding the final turn. What can he do as he will now soon cross the line himself? And he goes 16th fastest, 16th for Verne. Sainz about to start a lap. Here's Ocon, also in the wet conditions, and his teammate currently on the pole at the moment as the track continues to wetten up out there. So in towards Ravazza 1 and 2 we go. And as you can see, Ocon there looked like he had a little bit of a wiggle going through Ravazza 2, so it looks like lap times might start to deteriorate now as the track starts to worsen up. In towards the last chicane we go, heading down the pit straight. And Ocon now then goes across the line to go 17th for the moment. Raikkonen goes 18th in the Suomi. Massa on a lap, and you can definitely tell, look, because his lap was done in the dry, look. And look how much time he loses in the wet conditions, look. He crosses the line, and it's a 1:26.443. Hamilton now then hasn't done a lap, and it doesn't look like he's going to be on for a good lap either. Only P20 for the championship leader. It looks like he might have made a mistake or something like that, but then again, looking at it, it looks like the conditions have got worsened since he's come across the line. Still 4th for Magnussen, still 5th for Nico Hulkenberg, Sebastian Vettel. But then again, it does look like Vettel is on a good lap at the moment. He goes 17th, so maybe there was a couple of others on the track that might have made a mistake, including Hamilton and the two cars that were behind him at this stage. As 21st for Scott Dixon at this stage, had a teammate, Ed Jones, still 6th for Antonio Giovinazzi, still 10th for Fernando Alonso. And as you can see, Carlos Sainz Jr. now they're heading down towards Ravazza 1 and 2. And well, that's pretty much that really, as they go through the Ravazza corners now then on the track. And into the turn now then, heading up towards the final chicane. And whoopsie daisy, my iPad decided to drop out of my hand. As now Sainz comes out the final turn, and he crosses the line, and he goes still 11th fastest with that lap. I don't know if the rain has suddenly got worse for him, but we definitely know that 3 guys might have made mistakes on their lap, that's for sure. As Massa will come up now then towards the pit lane. And you can tell the rain is definitely intensifying. They'll have to hope that the conditions improve. Hamilton down in last place at the moment due to the wet weather conditions. So we wonder if he made a mistake, of course, because he's way off the pace of a lot of guys at this stage. Yeah, look at that. He must have made a mistake somewhere on his lap, because everybody else is around 26 or 27 on their lap times, or 28. He's down in the 34. So now that I think of it, the other two behind him must have not made mistakes. Looking at it, they just probably not been able to hook up a good lap. But Hamilton must have made a mistake to be on a 1:34, so I wouldn't be surprised in a little bit he comes out to do an improvement, as a current pole sitter Max Verstappen is now on the track to try and test out the wet conditions. And at this stage, as the rain continues to intensify, he'll get his first pole position since last season, and Martini's first ever pole position in IFMC. Yes, that's even including the illegal car they had at the beginning of the season, because they didn't even take pole with that car. So that'll be that really. Martini just probably hoping that the rain continues to be at this sort of level for them to get an unlikely pole position this weekend, as Verstappen now then approaches the chicane, the right-left chicane. And if you look at it in a way, this is exactly what Imola needed, these conditions, if they wanted to keep their slim chance of the Constructors' Championship alive this weekend. Because let's not forget, Etihad, for them to win the Constructors' Championship, they needed a 1-2 this weekend. And considering that Hamilton's last and Alonso's 10th, and he set his time in the dry, it makes you wonder, of course. I mean, let's not forget, Alonso was held up in traffic during his lap. So it makes you wonder that this is exactly what EMR needed, considering that Hulkenberg is actually up in 5th place at the moment in the wet conditions. So, as I said, this is probably what they exactly needed at this stage, as Verstappen rounds the first 3 turns to start his first wet lap, and in towards the Villeneuve chicane he'll go, and he'll probably give us a little bit of an idea of what the conditions are like in terms of lap times, and compare them to that. I do apologise if you hear me sniffle and have a funny voice. I do have a bit of a cold because of the hay fever. So now Verstappen approaching Piratella now then, as the spray continues to pile out the back of the car, and now down towards the 2 Aquaminerali corners, and as you can see, Verstappen so far keeping the car in smooth condition at this stage. And so, as you can see, Verstappen just rounding the chicane now then, as he'll go down towards the 2 Avatsa corners. Let's not forget, yesterday as well, there was a threat of rain for the GP3 qualifying session, but that never actually came. But this one, we were expecting rain throughout the session. Whether it will lighten up, though, for those guys who are on the wet weather tyres, we'll wait and see. It seemed to vary in terms of the weather forecast, but we'll see. As Verstappen decides to bail out of this one and go back into the pit, and it looks like Perez is going to do the same thing as well, and will Raikkonen perhaps do the same thing. He hasn't got the indication he's actually going to stay out, but will he actually go and do the lap himself? He has done a lap in the wet conditions, so he'll look to try and improve if he can, and he will stay out, it seems, as let's not forget, Raikkonen did his lap time in the wet conditions. Ricciardo didn't, but he's going to do a lap either way. In fact, he's finished a lap. He's still 9th place at the moment. Magnussen out there getting a run. Vettel also did a lap in the wet conditions, and he's down in 17th place at this stage, as Vettel comes out of turn 3 now then on the track, as they go down towards the Villeneuve chicane, and into the Villeneuve chicane we go, as Raikkonen will now approach. So yeah, Vettel and was it Raikkonen or Magnussen in front, just going around that hairpin there then, and so he's done there then, as they go up towards Piratella. Be a little bit more slow now, it won't be just a tap on the brakes through that left-hander, as they go down the hill towards the 2 Aquaminerali corners, and Vettel trying to make sure that his car doesn't slip off the road now that it is wet out there. Same with the car behind him. I can't quite tell who that was. That's Lewis Hamilton who's out there. He's looking to try and get out of last place if he can, possibly to a maximum of possibly either 15th, 16th or 17th. Not 100% sure at this stage, as Vettel comes down towards the 2 Ravazza corners, and so through the first Ravazza and then into the second Ravazza we go. Coming off the turn, using all the curb on the outside, as Vettel will now approach the final 3 corners. And let's see what Sebastian Vettel can do now then, as he'll head down the pit straight. And across the line he goes. He's not going to improve as the conditions have now intensified. He remains in 17th place, as Hamilton improves, but he's still in last place at the moment. The wet conditions have got worse for him, and he's not even at the moment beating the 2 Mars Grand Prix cars. Still 21st for Dixon, still 15th for Romain Grosjean, and that's pretty much that really, as Leclerc starts a lap, trying to get some wet mileage into him as possible. And we look at K-Mag now then in the Suomi, as he'll head up the hill towards Piratella, as we have just over 18 minutes to go in this qualifying session to determine the grid for tomorrow's San Marino Grand Prix. But it doesn't look like there's going to be that much movement in this qualifying session unless the conditions lighten up for us to have an improvement, because most of the guys did laps on the dry conditions, and others did theirs in slightly wet conditions, and others in very wet conditions, like with Lewis Hamilton at this stage, which is why he's down in last place behind the 2 Mars Grand Prix cars. Hamilton made a mistake was in the light wet conditions, but he made a mistake on his lap, which cost him time, and that's not exactly what he needs at this stage. As going through Ravazza 1 and 2 goes Kevin Magnussen, as he comes off the turn now, then towards the final 2 turns. And let's see what K-Mag can do now then. Into the left and right hander he goes, as he'll head down the pit straight. And let's see what the lap time is for Kevin Magnussen. It is a 1:31.660, just over a second, just under a second slower than his best. Sorry, just over 10 seconds slower than his best time. And well, that's that for him really. So that's pretty much his wet mileage done with there. Then people just trying to get some wet miles in as best as possible. Charles Leclerc now then across the line. He did his time in the dry and remains 13th for the moment. Alonso back out to get some more wet miles. It's probably for him a good opportunity while he's there to be in 10th place with his teammate down in last, because it gives him a good opportunity to close the gap down a little bit between himself and Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship, as Hulkenberg nearly 10 seconds off his best time, which he set in the dry, and he's still in 5th place at this stage. And so that's that for him really, as Hartley comes down towards Ravazza 1 and 2, and he just goes through those section of corners. And at this stage, Verstappen will be the first non Etihad pole sitter since Sebastian Vettel back at the Belgian Grand Prix, I believe it was. No, not Belgian Grand Prix, it was the United States Grand Prix. I do apologise. That's when Vettel took pole. So it's been a while since we've had a non-Etihad pole sitter in IFMC, and it's been a while since we've had a non-Etihad winner as well. That was back in the United States Grand Prix again with Iamar Hulkenberg in their controversial style, of course. Hartley through the first 3 turns, trying to get some wet mileage in, as he will now approach the Villeneuve chicane. Round the left and right hander we go. And up towards the left hander now then he goes. And as you can see, it looked like Hartley had a little bit of a wiggle, as you could tell in his head. Had to work a little bit hard in the cockpit there to try and possibly correct that, as Hartley will now approach the Piratella. Out of the turn he goes before heading down the hill towards the 2 Aquaminerali corners, as Hartley now then braking into the turn now then. Up the hill he goes towards the chicane. And let's see what Hartley can do. So far he's keeping it on the track at the moment, just getting some wet miles in as he exits out of the chicane now, then heading down towards the 2 Ravazza corners. And now down towards Ravazza 1 we go. Just a note, I do apologise that there was no press conference yesterday. We had a few technical problems with that, so I do apologise for that. There was no press conference. We seem to have a few technical problems yesterday that we were unable to solve. And it looks like maybe at the moment it looks like the press conference might not be on for the next 2 weeks as well, but we'll wait and see really. We'll see what happens, but just to keep an eye out, guys, just keep an eyelid on it, as Hartley now then will approach the left-right chicane. And so now he will go around turn 3, and I think he did his lap, didn't he? Yes, he did his lap, but like that was going to improve anyway. He's currently 14th at the moment, so that's that for him really. A few more guys doing wet runs at this stage, and so I'm going to see if anybody else is a little bit closer to doing a lap. Carlos Sainz currently 11th, but I think he did his lap in the dry as well, as he will approach the final chicane, heading down the pit straight. And Sainz will cross the line, and he remains 11th with that lap. Fernando Alonso, P10, remains P10 at this stage. As we look at Bottas, who's 7th at the moment in the Eldorado, as he'll soon approach the first few turns on the track. And so into Ravazza 1 we go, and then it will soon be Ravazza 2. And he's having to tippy-toe around those 2 Ravazzas there, is Bottas, as he will soon approach the final 2 turns on the track. And Bottas through the left, then the right, and they'll head down the pit straight. And let's see the lap time anyway, and it is a 1:32.687. It looks like, in fact, the track is starting to brighten up a little bit, so we could be seeing into conditions in a little bit, as it looks like it's starting to brighten up a bit down the pit straight. But That's that really, but we'll wait and see. Perez about to finish his wet lap. Currently in second place at the moment as he heads down the pit straight. And across the line he goes, and he remains obviously second because he set his time in the dry conditions. Schumacher also set his time in the dry conditions on his return, so he's going to remain 12th with that lap. And as you can see, it's starting to brighten up a little bit now on the track, so we could be seeing some improvements for guys who did their laps in the wet weather conditions. Here's Van Dorn, who's done a dry lap, of course. Into the final few turns he goes as he heads down the pit straight. As he crosses the line now then and does a 1:32.622 with that lap. As you can see, Raikkonen on the track, and he'll be starting a lap very soon. Bottas going in as is current pulsar to Verstappen. Here is Grosjean now then, as he will approach the right-left chicane. Trying to be a little bit more cautious into those corners. As he'll now head down towards the two Lavazza corners. And Grosjean now then heading down towards those two corners out there on the track. Flicking the car into the corner through Ravazza 1 and then into Ravazza 2. As he comes off the turn in towards the final three corners on the track. And let's see how Grosjean does this time by. On the right, then the left, down the pit straight. Still not close enough to his best time at the moment as he crosses the line and is still 7 seconds off his best time at the moment, so we're not quite there for improvements perhaps. Jones nowhere near as well as he comes off the final turn, and he crosses the line to remain 20th at this stage. His teammate just goes out on the track, and here is Verne now then 16th. His teammate currently 9th I think, heading down the pit straight, and Verne will now cross the line and he remains 16th fastest with that lap there then. And Ocon out there to get some wet miles. Here is Raikkonen into the chicane. He'll go in the Suomi, rounding the right-left chicane. So you can see the spray continuing to come off the back of the Suomi car at this stage as he'll head down towards the two Lavazza corners. And so through Ravazza 1 and then into Ravazza 2 he goes. And he comes off the turn now then before approaching the final three corners. And let's see what Raikkonen can do now then as he will approach the left and right hander. Through the left, then the right, and he'll soon head down the pit straight. And he'll go down towards the pit straight and still 7 seconds off his best time. He obviously did his time in light wet weather conditions, so that's why he's still not quite close to his time yet. Ocon in the Martini, and he's had a little bit of a history with this track, of course, especially with a certain Fernando Alonso back in season 2. Well, we know about that history, of course, where they infamously collided. As now in towards Piratella goes Ocon, as he just goes around the left-hander now, then down towards the two Ravazza corners. Through Ravazza 1, then Ravazza 2. And into the right-left chicane will go on the track. And he just tippy-toes around that chicane. It begs the question whether it will actually be wet for the race. It will be very interesting if that is the case, but we will wait and see on that as we head down towards Ravazza 1 and 2. And Ocon now then round those section of corners, round 2. Coming off the turn, using all the curb on the outside as we now approach the final two corners on the track. And Ocon about to finish off a lap as he comes down the pit straight. Ocon now then across the line he will go, and he remains 18th, still around 9 seconds off his personal best at the moment as Raikkonen goes back in. Had to wait for his teammate to go around the final two turns there for him to do so. As we look at Dixon in the Mars Grand Prix car, into the right-left chicane, heading down towards the two Ravazza corners, which he's heading down towards now. And let's see what he can do round the left-hander, and then into the second left-hander, Ravazza 2, heading down towards the final two turns. There's the EMR of Hulkenberg, I believe that is. Into the final two turns then goes Dixon, and let's see what he can do. Round the left, then the right. And then down towards the pit straight now then, and Dixon will cross the line. And he's 8. And he's still 8 seconds off his personal best. Hartley does a lap himself. Alonso out there on the track just to probably complete his qualifying lap. Same with probably most of the others out on track. Vettel nowhere near his best time as the conditions continue to deteriorate out there on the track. As he comes down the pit straight, and he's still 9 seconds off his best time at this stage. Hamilton now then, he will approach the final 2 turns, and he looks like he's going to be nowhere near his best. It looks like it might be last place for Lewis Hamilton, which is probably what all of his rivals would have wanted if that were the case, as Hamilton comes down towards the last few turns on the track. Round the left, then the right, and then into turn 3 we will go. And Hamilton currently in those positions. Sainz out there on the track doing a lap. Magnussen starting one himself. Well, finished one himself. He's obviously not going to improve because he's still in 4th place at the moment. Giovinazzi remains 6th for the moment. He obviously set his time in the dry. Leclerc 13th for the moment, just doing his laps. Bottas will be going out to do his final few laps as we come towards the final 7 minutes of this qualifying session to determine the grid for tomorrow's San Marino Grand Prix. At this stage, it's looking like it's going to be as it is at this stage, unless the conditions lighten up towards the end of the session. But we'll wait and see. Hulkenberg heads down the pit straight. Across the line he goes. And of course, 15 seconds off his personal best. Still 5th place at the present moment as Alonso finishes off his laps. Massa now then into the final few turns. And let's see what he can manage as he rounds the final 2 turns on the track. And Massa now then will cross the line. And he remains 8th place with that lap. As Hamilton will be going back into the pits. And, well, it looks like he's going to have a lot of work to do tomorrow for the race, it must be said. As we look at Sainz, who's currently in 11th place as he will round the final chicane. Down the pit straight we go. And Sainz now then finishes off his lap and still 15 seconds off the pace, and he finishes off his final flying lap. Schumacher will be doing so in a bit, as his teammate Van Dorn. So A&P getting both their guys out there at the same time just to get some wet mileage underneath them. Here's pole sitter at the moment, Max Verstappen, coming off the 2 Ravazza corners now then, as he'll soon approach the final 2 turns. And obviously just getting some mileage for the wet weather conditions at this stage as he'll head down the pit straight now then, and Verstappen will cross the line. And obviously 13 seconds off his personal best, and that will do it for him because he won't have any more laps to do, any more flying laps at this stage. That made no sense whatsoever. Hulkenberg going back in, and he's finished for the day, of course. Alonso about to complete his lap. It looks like it's going to be 10th place for the Spaniard, and probably the only chance Etihad has of possibly getting a victory this weekend. He'll be hoping that Hamilton makes a very good recovery drive if Etihad want to wrap up the constructors tomorrow, as Alonso remains 10th with that lap. Obviously got held up on his first flying lap and obviously wasn't able to improve as the conditions got worse. So there we are really in terms of that. Bottas on the lap as he comes down towards the 2 Aquaminerali corners, as the Finn currently looks like it's going to be a 7th place finish for qualifying. Perez looking like he's going to be on the front row in the Eldorado, so that's going to help him out, the team out of course, in terms of trying to get up towards that battle for 2nd place in the constructors between themselves, EMR, Bud Light Lime and Suomi. And heading down towards those 2 Lavazza corners we go. And maybe if they can slowly start to close in a little bit more, showing their good form in recent races, maybe Martini could have a shot at trying to get 2nd themselves. I think it's a little bit of a long run, but I think maybe 5th place could still be likely for them, and maybe even 4th. But we'll wait and see how their season progress, how they progress in these final few races of the season. Bottas now then goes across the line and is 14 seconds off the pace, still in 7th place. As a result, just getting a few wet miles on there in case it is going to be wet for tomorrow's race. So that's that for him really. Ricciardo on the lap in the GRM as he rounds Piratella. Looks like it's going to be night for the Aussie at this stage. as he'll go down towards the 2 Aquamilarali corners himself. Into these section of corners he'll go, as he'll head up the hill towards the right-left chicane. And Riccardo now then in towards the chicane he goes, as he tippy-toes around those corners now then, heading down towards the 2 Lavazza corners. And so down towards Lavazza goes Daniel Ricciardo, through Lavazza 1, and then into Lavazza 2 we go. Out of the turn now then, before heading in towards the final few corners on the track. And let's see what the time's going to be for Ricciardo. Obviously he won't improve because he did his lap in the dry. As he comes down the pit straight, across the line he will go, and the time is a 1 minute 36.275 for the moment. Mick Schumacher crosses the line. It's still going to be taut for him, of course. He's just finishing off laps himself. Here's Perez. Looks like it's going to be a front row start for him, looking to try and beat at this stage Max Verstappen to the first corner tomorrow if he can, as he comes out of Lavazza 2, heading in towards the final 2 turns. And let's see what Perez can do now then, as he'll go down the pit straight. And Perez now then will cross the line himself, and obviously will remain second because of course he did his time in the dry and was about 14 seconds off the pace. Hamilton just completing his final laps just to get some wet mileage in, so he'll look to try and make a comeback tomorrow from last place on the grid. Keep an eye on him tomorrow as well to see what sort of progress Lewis will make, but he just starts his final flying lap now as we go into the final 2 minutes of qualifying. Ocon starting his lap, and here comes Ocon now then, round the 2 Ravats as he goes, as he'll head down towards the final 3 turns on the track. And let's see what Jones can manage then, as he rounds the left and right-hander. Grosjean right behind him, looking like he's getting held up, like he was going to improve anyway. Jones crosses the line to do a 1 minute 38.763, a 1:34.882 for Romain Grosjean. Here's fellow compatriot Jean-Eric Vergne coming off the final turn, and he goes across the line, and he is 11 seconds off the pace as Vettel starts his final flying laps now. Then Raikkonen still remains 19th, behind the man that he had an accident with down at turn 1 last season, Sebastian Vettel. As now we'll look at Scott Dixon, who will approach the final 3 corners on the track, and so into the final 2 turns as he'll head down the pit straight. And Dixon now then will cross the line, and he's 9 seconds off as a result because of the fact he did his time in milder conditions than this. Hamilton just trying to get a run in, but it looks like it's going to be last place for the championship leader, and he'll have to make a lot of progress tomorrow if he is going to help Etihad try and win the constructors tomorrow here at Imola. As Hamilton comes off the final turn, and the lap time is going to be for Hamilton 4 seconds off his personal best, so no improvement for him. Here comes Esteban Ocon. He's down in 18th, and he's obviously going to stay there in these remaining 20 seconds. Still 18th for him. Leclerc will get to flying lap in before the checkered flag comes out. And look at Vettel, who comes down the hill, and press the wrong button there. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Checkered flag is out, and that is the end of the session then. And we come up now then towards the final 2 turns. Vettel will come around the corners now then, and he'll finish off his final flying laps. It's going to be 17th place for the German, and he obviously set his time in milder conditions. And here is Scott Dixon now then, as he goes down towards the 2 Lavazza corners, and he's going back into the pits. Brendan Hartley just doing a mileage run, just doing an out lap, and then going there, and then just crossing the line to then go back into the pits a little bit later on as the checkered flag draws the session to a close. Into the final 2 turns then goes Brendan Hartley, and let's see what he can, what lap, as you can see, just comes across the line, and that will be him finished with. Anybody else on lap as Leclerc goes for a spin, so an aquaplane into Aquamilarali, and he smashes it into the wall, loses his front wing as a result. So that's his session over with there then. And it looks like he's just going to remain there for the remainder of the session unless he can get it reversed. I think he might have beached the car, in fact. So Leclerc's day will be done in the gravel, I think. And I wouldn't be surprised if a marshal starts to tow him in a little bit. And, well, Leclerc aquaplanes off into Aqua Minerale, where it's definitely getting a bit wet. Will it be wet, though, for the feature race and race 1 of IFMC GP? We'll wait and see. But it looks like Leclerc might have found a gear, in fact, as he's able to get going again. But he'll have to go back in without a front wing. And as he just goes out of the turn now then. And he's going to, let's see, gets going again. As before Vettel gets anywhere near, but Leclerc have to go back in without a front wing. And Hartley now then, here he is, as everybody's just kind of slowing down, having to wait for Leclerc to go back into the pits. And well, that will be that really, as Leclerc now then heads down towards the two Lavazza corners, and he will go into the pits without a front wing, of course. So as a result, I do believe it will leave Max Verstappen on pole position for tomorrow's San Marino Grand Prix due to these mixed conditions here at Imola. As he goes in, qualifying over. There you have it then. So, for the first time since last season, it is Max Verstappen who is on pole position for tomorrow's San Marino Grand Prix. He takes Martini's first ever pole position in IFMC. And, well, he did that for doing the lap time in the dry conditions. So there you have it then, guys. After all of that, here is the grid for tomorrow's San Marino Grand Prix. A mixed up grid for the race tomorrow. And hopefully we'll get a very exciting race as well. It's Max Verstappen on pole position with Sergio Perez in second. Stoffel Vandoorne third. Kevin Magnussen fourth. Nico Hulkenberg in fifth. Followed by Antonio Giovinazzi sixth. Valtteri Bottas seventh. Felipe Massa eighth. Daniel Ricciardo ninth. Fernando Alonso 10th. Carlos Sainz Jr. 11th. Mick Schumacher 12th. Charles Leclerc 13th. With Brendan Hartley 14th. And if we scroll down the rest of the field, it's Romain Grosjean 15th, Jean-Eric Vergne 16th, Sebastian Vettel 17th, Esteban Ocon 18th, Kimi Raikkonen 19th, Ed Jones in 20th, Scott Dixon 21st, and Lewis Hamilton in 22nd and last. So look out for those big men trying to come up through the field tomorrow. The likes of Grosjean, Vergne maybe, Vettel, Ocon, Raikkonen, and Hamilton as well. Look out for those guys to make it through the field tomorrow. Maybe even Alonso as well, down in 10th. We are in the makers of probably a very exciting San Marino Grand Prix tomorrow. But there you have it then, guys. That has been it for the qualifying session ahead of the San Marino Grand Prix. Hope you enjoyed it. Wasn't exactly exciting after the conditions wetting things up, but it does leave us with a mixed up grid and the potential of a very exciting race tomorrow. But there you have it then, guys. That has been it. I hope you enjoyed it. But stick around now, guys, because coming up next is the feature race for IFMC GP2, which will see Felix Rosenqvist on pole position with Pierre Gasly second and Lando Norris in third. So if you want to go and grab a quick drink, then you can. But until then, I'm in JWF1, and I'll see you guys in just a little bit.